Hi everyone, Buyer's Agent Jay Pace here for Providence Property Group with a market update for the month that was July 2024. For those of you new to the channel, we are a national buyer's agency with our head office here in Sydney. We've also got offices in Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. We believe that there's always an opportunity somewhere and we help you to be a player and not a spectator in your wealth journey, focusing on quality properties over quantity. Operating through 3 decades, our experience will ensure no sleepless nights worrying about property markets. And on this channel, we talk about all things property, but most importantly, I read the news and separate the fact from the fiction so you don't have to. Let's jump straight in. So, the number one question that we get asked as property professionals is, what is the market going to do? And throughout the years of making these videos for our clients, I've showed many examples of the experts getting it wrong. We've got it wrong. Everyone gets it wrong, right? But I generally think most of them are not trying to mislead, but I'm positive almost all of them, including me, have personal biases that definitely affect the way that they forecast. Now, the future of property is a lot more certain than most people understand. This is because most investors don't study history. We're keen students of history, and this is our description of the real estate cycle. And we believe that fortunes are built on market cycles. This property cycle occurs across 18 to 20 years. It is on average about an 18.5 year cycle. But this cycle clearly and historically repeats itself. Now, if you have not already watched the video of us talking about this, I recommend that you jump onto our YouTube channel and educate yourself on the property cycle itself, because we gave an address in March 2020 to ANZ Bank. This was weeks before COVID was kind of announced. Not a mask or a thing of hand sanitizer in sight in this photo. And during this presentation, we actually explained, with COVID coming, because we had some of the data, we knew since September 2019, that we predicted very strong uptrend to see in the market. And you can actually find that video and the videos after that explaining why we continued to think the market was going to go up. Now, I was reading a report by John Lindemann where he kind of illustrates how 3 dynamics working in conjunction can forecast the direction of property prices. And that inspired me to go kind of down the rabbit hole and expand on the 3 Ps. Now, if you've been following our channel for a while, these concepts are going to be very familiar because I talk about 2 of these concepts in every single video that we do. So let's have a chat about that. Now, the first P is population growth and movement. And this can consist of international immigration, interstate migration, births and deaths, all of which are affected by infrastructure and services. So infrastructure and services count for transportation, healthcare, education. There are economic factors, so I'm talking about labor force, consumer base, levels of confidence with consumers, government policies. I'm talking about immigration, housing supply, budget, and urban development. All of these factors will play a role in shaping supply and demand. The second P is purchasing power, okay? And when we're looking at purchasing power, this is when we look at the availability, the cost, and the need for finance. And this can consist of loan accessibility, government policies, interest rates, loan terms, cost of living and wage growth, all of which are affected by inflation, which is affected obviously by wage growth and the cost of living, economic conditions like employment rates, consumer confidence, and finally, housing market activity such as supply constraints and investor activity. And the third and final P, and this is all going to make sense when I put them all together, is for properties, specifically the relative surplus or shortage of suitable housing stock, which is different in every single city and state. I can't stress that enough. Vacancy rates become a huge factor when it comes to the affecting of prices of not just property, but rents as well. And then we've got sustainable housing stock. So that's the types of housing that we have: units, townhouses, duplexes, houses themselves, standalone, Location and amenities. So properties in locations with better access to amenities, transport, schools, employment opportunities, tend to be in higher demand. And a shortage of such will basically change up those prices, and it will drive prices in those areas up. And we've got housing developments such as construction rates, government policies, regulations, zoning laws, land use regulations, and housing policies. So every single one of these dynamics, I guess, is a sub-dynamic to the main dynamic, all right? And I know that sounds a bit confusing, but I'll make sense of it now. And I'm going to shrink myself a little bit so you've got a bit more space here to see. So this is what it can look like when you combine all three. So we will review only 7 because this specific forecast pattern using only the 3 Ps, population, purchasing power, and properties, can actually combine into 27 different combinations. But we don't have time to go through all of them, nor do we have time to go into detail on what movements result in a change in the value of each dynamic in each one of those cells. I really just want you to take 2 things away from this, okay? And I know a lot of you are pausing it because you want to read all of them. There are patterns all around us which we can use to better forecast the markets. That's number 1. Number 2 is I have an unhealthy relationship with Microsoft Excel. Now, back to the table itself. The golden rule here is that the 3 dynamics always operate together to result in a price prediction. And this table illustrates just some of the possible ways that these dynamics can work in conjunction with each other and the potential changes in price that they would generate. So for example, scenario 1, property markets will boom. That will occur when there's more buyer demand, increasing purchase power, and a shortage of available property. Increasing purchase power doesn't necessarily translate to borrowing power. So I'll give you an example. In October 2021, when the RBA cash rate was 0.1%, right? We're at 4.35. It was at 0.1%, 2021. APRA raised the minimum serviceability buffer from 2.5% to 3%. What does that mean? It means that if you had an interest rate at the time of 3%, and I know a lot of us did, or even less, you were assessed on whether you could service that loan at 6%, 3% buffer, okay? In essence, making it slightly more difficult to borrow money. However, from 2020, mid-2020 kind of onwards, the savings rate that we got for consumers shot up. Consumer income's got a boost from numerous government stimulus packages. So I'm talking about JobKeeper, JobSeeker, pandemic government checks, free childcare, access to superannuation, freezing housing repayments, etc. There's quite a bit. I've said this a couple times. We printed 3 times more the amount of money during COVID than what we did during the global financial crisis in 2008. And then everyone got confused as to where inflation was coming from when we were printing something that we needed to show value. It was absolute mayhem. That resulted in the largest amount of household savings ever recorded by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Why? These savings resulted in an increase of buying power. And with that dynamic in place, with an increasing population and a shortage of properties, we got our boom. So you can follow this process, follow the breadcrumbs to see exactly what's happening. I'm not going to read through all these. I'll pick maybe 1 or 2 more. Let's say no price growth, scenario 4, where population's stable, purchasing power is stable, and then property prices are balanced. So everything's just kind of normal, okay? You're not really going to get any price growth. Let's see what happens when we have a crash. You've got decreasing population, you've got decreasing purchase power, and you've got property supply increasing. And again, like I said, there's 27 of these, and sometimes different combinations can still lead to a boom, a strong price growth, etc. So again, you've got to really look at the data quite thoroughly to get a better understanding as to where it's possibly going to go based on that forecast. Okay, let's look at the hedonic home value index for the month as well. I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger because it's a bit small for me. Okay, so this is as of Thursday, the 1st of August 2024, is when the data was coming out. And what we can see here is we can see Perth, again, 2% up for the month, 1.8% up for Adelaide in second place, 1.1% up for Brisbane in third place. Overall, though, for the year, we see 24.7% increase in Perth. I mean, it's pretty amazing, 24.7. That's without rental yield. Plus rental yield, that's 30.6% increase, all right? Second place, still Brisbane, 16%, up 20.6%. Really nipping at its heels is Adelaide, 15.5% so far, with rental yield 20.2. They're very close to each other, these two. So they're battling it out for second place. Now the speed check. And with our rolling 12-month movement, I've done the numbers from, as I said, 1st of August 2023 to 1st of August 2024. So that's our 12 months. And we can see $191,000 increase in Perth during that time, divided by 52 weeks in the year, gives us approximately $3,700 per week. Brisbane, $139,000 increase, up, and that's $2,700 per week. Adelaide, $120,000 for the year, or $2,300 per week. Sydney, currently up $65,000 for the past year, or $1,300 per week. And again, you'll recognize with that red arrow going down, Sydney performed worst over the past month in regards to average 12-month growth, divided that by 52, than it did the monthly results prior to that. So it's slowing down. So I think when I first started doing this at the beginning of the year, Sydney was close to $2,200 per week, and now it's dropped down to $1,300 per week. Melbourne, $2,000, doing absolutely nothing, down $30 per week is currently the increase that we're seeing there. The number of total listings nationally, and again, this is me talking about property, one of the three Ps, currently trending 0.6% higher than the same time last year. However, total listings are still 17.3% lower than the historic 5-year average, highlighting persistent undersupply that has contributed to ongoing value increases nationally. And that's something that we're going to continue to see. Total listings are sitting notably higher across Victoria and Tasmania than the same time last year, and this is a reflection of a softer market conditions in those particular capital cities. This is why I'm concerned about Melbourne. I mean, it's 18.8% more stock than it had last year. Property prices are continuing to be soft, and they're going down. If we look at some of the other capital cities there and we focus on WA as an example, obviously lowest amount of stock on the market, 22.6% less stock than they had same time last year, also contributing to higher demand and obviously increase in prices. Total listings are still, like I said, 17.3% lower. If we look at the amount of, this isn't total listings, that's the wrong title I put there. This is the amount of new developments. So decade averages for houses, decade averages for units are lower than the 10-year average, sorry, there. So, you know, we're just not building enough product. We've got more people coming into the country, and, you know, finance is obviously hard for people to get. So, you know, we're just seeing property prices continue to have that pressure to go up. Vacancy rate, I mean, another huge indicator here. Vacancy rate currently at 1.3%. So lower vacancy rates, so capital city vacancy rates are at 1.3%. We have historically seen, you know, these low vacancy rates at very, you know, rapid rising rents as a result of those. Even though this has come up slightly, it was 1% a couple months ago, it's still, the average was 3% over the past decade. So to be, you know, 60% basically below that is still not attractive. Annual change in capital city populations. Now, this is an important one because Australia's population is highly urbanized. And this is why I've always had an aversion to regional stock. And whoever talks to me about it realizes pretty straight away I'm not a fan. Now, if we look at high concentration of people living along the southeastern coastline from southeast Queensland to Victoria, Cities in Australia continue to reign supreme, growing faster than regional areas overall. Now, you might see a little blip every now in regional areas, but long-term doesn't make sense. Vital infrastructure, transportation, housing, education, healthcare, and employment are a major draw card for major capital cities. Regionals can't compete. They're not in the same game. Despite numerous attempts throughout Australia's history, population decentralisation is unlikely. We're just not going to see people moving to regional areas as a normal thing. It's just not going to happen. And while Sydney and Melbourne are nearly twice as big as the next largest capital city, which is actually Brisbane, the rate of change in 2023 shows that Perth is actually the fastest growing capital city in regards to population. By 2036, Melbourne is projected to be Australia's largest capital city. Not surprisingly, given that Sydney has a considerable surplus of people moving to live in other places across Australia. So we're seeing a lot of interstate migration. And that number about Melbourne, again, I'm a fan of Melbourne. I like it. Would I buy there at the moment? No. You'd be losing money on capital growth and you'd be losing money on rental yields. So really, you've got to sit there and hold your breath and go, how long is this going to go for? And I know people say, sell whenever everyone's greedy and buy when everyone's scared. People are scared of Melbourne at the moment, so it makes sense. But I'm not confident enough to jump in there, and I'm not seeing other people as well. Gross rental yields currently 3.5% on average across the combined capital cities. Again, seeing kind of Perth as the most attractive one at 4.3. Yes, Hobart's at the same rate, and yes, Darwin's higher, but both of those economies together couldn't spit on Perth's shoes. They just can't do it. So that's why 4.3 to me is the sweet spot still with Western Australia. Let's quickly talk about interest rates. So during its meeting this week, the RBA board opted to maintain the cash rate at 4.35% due to what we can continue to see as a bit of sticky inflation there, and it's remaining above the 2 to 3% target that the RBA really wants to see and has had since 2022. The economic outlook is uncertain, with inflation expected to return to the target range by late 2025. What I really quickly want to talk about, I'm not going to go on to too much because it can be a bit of a boring subject. Now that tax season is done, we can now take a look under the hood of Australia's largest bank for a bit of a litmus test on how the market is going from a lending perspective and from arrears. The 2023 Annual Report has come out from CBA showing the current arrears, delinquent loans, and customer savings. So consumer arrears showing the proportion of customers who have fallen behind on their contractual loan repayments of 90 days or more is currently lower than the year before and the year before that. And they're also lower than 2019 prior to the pandemic. Troublesome and impaired assets shows an increase since last year, but it's only slight, and also it is still less than financial year 2021. So nothing really to be alarmed about there. Home loans increased, and these numbers are pretty crazy. Home loans increased by $30 billion or 5%. Deposits at CBA and their subsidiary companies increased by $41 billion or 5%. Debt issues increased by about $5 billion or 5%. So after sticking my nose under there, there's really nothing that I saw in their 155-page report that is cause for alarm. A lot of that report didn't have anything to do really with profits or anything like that. It's about culture and diversity and change. So really the stuff that I was interested in made up a small amount of that report. Let's look at some recent property purchases in today's video. I've kind of chosen a few properties from the major capital cities. I didn't get to do Melbourne, but let's look at what we've got. This was a share house, and the owner who was selling it, who went to the agent but it was off market, didn't want it on the market because they wanted to continue receiving the rent. So we got this one off market through an agent that we have a good relationship with. And one of the couples renting a single bedroom in this share house actually stepped up during the sale process because they found out that it was getting sold, and they wanted to take on the entire lease. So we got rid of all the people that were in there for the share, except for one, and they actually took on the entire lease. So we secured a tenant before settlement even occurred. So there was no rental risk for this client who was buying. They were very happy. The interior's really nice. Again, it's a young property, ducted air conditioning, downlights, waterfall bench tops, etc. You know I like a nice alfresco area, and I love a separated garage with rear lane access. And also they've done a cover here. So sometimes you get garages with rear lane access where if you want to come into your house, you still got to run through the rain. At least with this, you've got a roof on top of that, which I thought was good. You know, we secured it off market, and valuation for us was spot on. We were very happy with it. It is 30 kilometers from the CBD, northwest of Perth CBD. We got it for $600,000. Rental estimate about $700 per week. Sorry, that's not the estimate. That's what we signed for with these people. That's a 5.9% rental yield. Why do we love it? It's across the road from primary schools, 500 meters to Woolworths, 2 kilometers to major shopping centers. It was off market, top location, owner occupier appeal, little to no maintenance, just a great buy. This was another off market property that we got for our clients. And unfortunately, because it was off market, there were no photos. They didn't pay for a campaign to do any photos or anything like that. Obviously, we sent photos and videos to our clients from our inspection, and they were very happy with that to go forward with it. Distance from CBD, again, with this one, 30 Ks northwest of Perth CBD. Rental estimate about $650 a week or 6%. Rental yield, you know, why do we love this purchase? We secured this great property off market with a leaseback agreement, and it's at market value, was good, low maintenance, above average rental yield, owner occupier appeal. It's a young property, makes a lot of sense. This one, we purchased this house. I was really happy with this purchase actually, with the property itself. We purchased this house for a Sydney-based couple looking to increase their exposure to the Queensland property market. They were looking for a standalone house on a large block with the potential to add value to it with some cosmetic renovations, but that wouldn't be until the future before selling the property and possibly crystallizing those profits. The property itself, I have to say, the listing photos online are terrible quality, and I feel like I'm in 1995. But hopefully you can see that there had been some cosmetic renovations already being done, meaning that the house is very rentable, low maintenance. It's on a 665 square meter block, and the house takes up less than 50% of the land component. Distance from the CBD, 13 kilometers north of Brisbane. Purchase price $910,000, $700 per week, give or take. Actually, it's about $670, I believe, is probably what we're going to get for it, which is about 3.8%, which is the average rental yield for houses in Brisbane. So we're right on the money there. Why do we love this purchase? It's got good bones in it. It's had a facelift. It's a large block. It's close to shops and amenities with owner-occupier appeal, and there's development potential. So again, that makes a lot of sense. The last one I'm going to show you is this Sydney unit. Now, again, people know that I'm not a massive fan of units unless they're really right. This one has the right stuff. This was a great purchase by our Sydney team. I think Joseph picked this up. This is an oversized 2-bedroom unit. It's only 15 years young with a great floor plan and a stunning balcony view in arguably, and I've been here many times, the most beautiful housing estate in Sydney. Now, the large balcony is a room in itself with stunning views of the park. I love the balcony. Any balcony that doesn't look directly onto another property is a huge win in my book, and this one is just really beautiful. And you can see even the size of the table that seats that many people there. I mean, it's quite large. The interior is modern, the floor plan's practical, and it's got really elegant finishes to it. It's quite lovely. Now, that's the floor plan. And again, I love anything that separates 2 bedrooms because it becomes really attractive for a co-living habitat or somebody who might want to sublease. Just makes it really attractive. How far is it from the CBD? It's only about 8 kilometers from the CBD. $1.330 million. So again, this is not cheap, but I mean, look what you're getting. As far as units are concerned, this is cream of the crop, and obviously you're going to pay that premium. Rental estimate, about $850 per week or 3.3% rental yield. Again, you're not really buying this for the rent. This is an owner-occupier type of product. Why do we love this? Again, great floor plan, amazing location, access to ferries, buses and major shopping centres, local schools, and a plethora of cafes. It's really one of my favourite areas, actually. Remember, we can't help you until you commit, and once you commit, we won't fail. So we're bringing two kind of things here. Your desire to build wealth and our 18 years of experience buying property. For more than 3 decades, Providence have helped Australians open a life of opportunity through real estate, giving them the future that they want. We buy unique quality assets in areas where demand outpaces supply, and we focus on property that appeals to a much larger market of owner-occupiers. That's 70%, not just those 30% of investors. And we buy in the right capital cities at the right time, guided by economic property cycles and data. We buy the property which is uniquely suited to your situation. And that's going to act as a springboard to your next wealth stage. This is how top performers invest, and this is how we invest. If you like what you've seen here and you want to be kept in the know with the Australian property market, make sure that you like this video, hit that subscribe button. And I wanted to thank you for your time today, and we will see you next month. Bye.